Hello, everyone, and welcome to Evening Chat with James DiPrima. I am your host. So it is 12:59 here in America. That means it's 5:59 in Rome, 4:59 in England, and almost 10 o'clock on the West Coast. So I hope you enjoy the show. Today we have I have three stories for you. I'm hoping to get a panel sometime, but let's go ahead to the first story. Brussels police conduct more raids linked to deadly bombings. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there was a bombing in Brussels a couple of days ago that left a lot of people injured or worse, dead. So the police obviously feel the need to, sneak out or sniff out any other possible bombs or terrorists that might be living in the area to cause more destruction. Police raided Brussels neighborhoods again Friday in an operation on a local officer. A local officer said was linked to both the airport and subway bombings and to the arrest in the Paris suburbs of a man who may have been plotting a new attack in France. 3 people were detained, with 2 of them shot in the leg, the federal prosecutor's office said. The operation was conducted in in the Shackerbeat district, which was raided Thursday night, as well as the Forest and St. Gilles neighborhoods, it added. Belgium's state broadcaster RTBF said 1 person was detained, was carrying a bag of explosives material. Heavily armed officers wearing hoods began the operation about 1:30 p.m., where there were 2 big explosions, said resident Marie-Pierre Beauvais, and it lasted about 2 hours. Beauvais, a veteran, told the Associated Press that police kept the area locked down and shouted at her to go back inside when she tried to go into the street. Shackerbeat district, I apologize if I screwed up the district's name before. Mayor Bernard Fate told RTBF that the raid was linked to the Brussels attacks and Thursday's detention of a man in France. On the third and final day of national mourning for Thursday's attacks that killed 31 people and wounded more than 270, Prime Minister Charles Michel skipped a reflagging ceremony at the airport with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry because of the police raids. Kerry, in a hastily arranged visit, defended Belgium's counterterrorism efforts despite a series of security and intelligence failures before the bombings. Confirming that several FBI agents are involved in the investigation, Kerry said the carping about Belgium's shortcomings is a little bit frantic and inappropriate. Top members of Belgium's embattled government are facing criticism over its counterterrorism efforts since and before the November 13th Paris attacks that killed 113 people and the authorities believe were plotted by Belgium. And Kerry also said the U.S. and other countries had already scheduled meetings with Belgium prior to the attacks about improvements they could make in their laws, intelligence collection, and attempts to blunt the radicalization of youth. The Islamic State group has claimed responsibility for the attacks in Paris and Brussels, and Kerry lashed out at the extremist group. "We will not be deterred," he said. "We will come back with greater resolve, with greater strength, and we will not rest until we have established your nihilistic beliefs and cowardice from the earth." Authorities also announced that American, British, Chinese, French, and Dutch citizens were among the dead. A manhunt has been underway since Tuesday for one of the Brussels airport attackers who was recorded on surveillance video and fled the scene. Prosecutors have not said how many attackers there were in total or how many accomplices might be at large. Belgian prosecutors said raids Thursday night targeted central Brussels, Jedet, and the Schaerbeek neighborhoods where police had earlier found a huge stash of explosives and bomb-making material in an apartment used by the Brussels attackers. 3 of 6 people detained in those raids have been released, prosecutors said. French counterterrorism police also detained a 34-year-old man Thursday who officials say was in the advanced stages of an attack plot. The suspect, Reda Kirket, had a past Belgian terrorism conviction and was linked to the suspect of the Paris attacks. Adelmed Abaouz, officials said to the Associated Press. I'm sorry if I'm really screwing up some of these names, but they are difficult to say and pronounce. Anyway, everywhere else, Belgium's nuclear agency said it has withdrawn the entire badges of some staff and denied access to other people recently amid concern the country's nuclear plants could be the target for extremists. The move at some plants, it is not necessarily linked with the terrorist attacks, said Nuclear Control Agency spokeswoman Nelly Sheerlink, noting the decision to deny access usually takes weeks. Immediately after Tuesday's attacks, security was boosted around the country's nuclear sites and hundreds of staff were sent home. Last month, authorities said searchers in the wake of the Paris attacks uncovered video linked to a person working in Belgium's nuclear industry. Belgian media reported this week that Brussels attackers Ibrahim and Khaled El Kabrosi had video recordings of the home of a center official at the Mole nuclear waste facility in the Flanders region. It's unclear why. In a sermon before Friday's prayers in the neighborhood of Molenbeek, home to some of the participants in the Paris attacks, Sheikh Mohammed Tojani denounced the Brussels bombers. Terrorism is terrorism, said Tojani, the imam of Molenbeek's main mosque. It has no state, no nationality, no religion, no country. In a message to the Belgian people, he added, "You are from us and we are from you. What affects you affects us." So basically, what's going on here is non-radicalized Muslims are standing up with the rest of the world and saying, enough is enough. We're sick of it. And quite honestly, we're not going to have it. And so they are making the stand against ISIS. Now, the next story, now we have this is a short one. The Rolling Stones, famed, popular British band, have finally made their historic, and I mean this truly, a historic date for a concert in Havana, Cuba. The Rolling Stones arrived in Cuba's capital. The Rolling Stones arrived in Cuba's capital Thursday on the eve of the rock band's historic free concert in the country where its music was once silenced. Mick Jagger offered a brief greeting in Spanish and said he was happy to be on the island. Friday night's concert will come 3 days after President Barack Obama wrapped up a visit in the communist-run island, during which he declared an end to the remnant of the Cold War in the Americas. Quote, "We have performed in several places in our long career, but this show in Havana will be a milestone for us. And we hope for all our friends in Cuba too," the band said in a statement released before the arrival. In the heat of Cuba's revolution from the 1960s to the 1980s, foreign bands like the Rolling Stones were considered subversive and blocked from the radio. Cubans listened to their music in secret, passing records from hand to hand. The band's Cuba stop follows concerts in Brazil, Uruguay, Chile, Argentina, and Mexico. So it's at least good that the Rolling Stones are finally breaking that barrier that, oh, they're communists, they're bad people, bad country, stay away, oh, all that. It's good the Rolling Stones are finally saying, look, President Obama made the stop, we're going to make a stop next, and we're going to show that it's okay to perform in other countries that have systems other than democracy. So it's good for the Rolling Stones and definitely historic, no offense or buts about it. And finally, I hate to do it, but I have to talk about it. Yesterday, Gary Shandling died at 66 of a heart attack, and his life was cut short after the heart attack he had. His publicist, Alan Neerob, told Entertainment Tonight that Shandling had no history of heart problems, but the doctors believe he died the result of a heart attack. There is no autopsy planned at this time, as he is believed to have died of natural causes, a coroner has told the Associated Press. Following the news of Shandling's death, co-stars, friends, and fellow comedians spoke out honoring the trailblazing comedian and writer. I'm going to miss him. I was in such a shock, said actress Goldie Hawn, told Entertainment Tonight through tears at the UCLA Institute of the Environment and Sustainability on Thursday night. Conan O'Brien remembers Shandling during Thursday's show, recalling how the comedian helped him through a tough time in his life after he was fired from The Tonight Show. He was an obviously hysterical, funny, pretty much all the time, but he was also extremely sensitive, O'Brien said. He was complicated, and he had a ton of empathy for other people, and I want to make that point. That is something in the business and comedy that is very rare. Shandling was best known for his work in The Larry Sanders Show and It's Gary Shandling Show. The Emmy winner was revered in the comedy world for both his work as a writer and a comic. So, all in all, I will say this. I watched a couple episodes of the Larry Sanders Show on Crackle. I don't think it's gut-busting funny, but it was, some episodes are funny, like the one with Bob Saget. You see Bob Saget go from the Danny Tanner guy to the Bob Saget we all know as the person he really is. So, overall, I mean, his death does affect the comedy world just as much as Robin Williams' death affected the comedy world. Not that I was a fan of Gary Shandling. I don't think he was that funny as a comic, but he was somewhat funny. He was enjoyable. But my sympathy and empathy goes out to those. Anyway, I apologize for the squeaking door and all that. Anyway. So my sympathy and empathy goes out to anyone who knew Gary Shandling personally or strictly through business, because he does seem like he was an honest guy his whole life. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the show. See ya.